Why don't we get started? Please, as you need, help yourself to the refreshments. Restrooms are out the door, straight back. Many of you probably already know the lay of this building. Well, it is my pleasure to welcome our families, our parents here this evening, to hear really what is a dynamic, exciting, dual mother-daughter speaking engagement that many of us at VFES, the leaders, directors that are in the room, had the pleasure of having dinner with. Let me back up by saying who I am, and some of you may know. I'm Grace Fornicola, the Executive Director of Valley Forge Educational Services. And as you know, April is Autism Awareness Month. And our directors, Carla Zajac, Julianne Jaffe, many others in the room, put together a series of events for our kids and staff and family to celebrate our kids and who they are. And let me tell you, it doesn't get any better than what you're going to hear tonight. Each have a wonderful, vibrant bio, but I wouldn't do it justice because the authenticity, the heart and soul, the genuineness of this young woman to my far left, Melanie, is both touching and inspirational. I'm going to let Melanie tell you about her successes because they are many and varied, and I am sure they have only just begun. So let me introduce the family to you, and as we promised we would say, the pretty face here in the front, holding the camera, is Mr. Mark Hecker. He is father to Melanie, wife of Phyllis. To my far left is Melanie Hecker, who again, a 20-year-old successful young woman. That's really all you need to know. She'll give you the background to that. And to my immediate left is her lovely mom, Phyllis. And again, we had the pleasure of getting to know the Heckers over a dinner in the last hour or so. And I am both touched and inspired by the stories that both of these women are going to share. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Phyllis, who will start with her remarks and comments. And she will throw it to Melanie when she is concluded. So thank you. Sit back and enjoy.
Hi. First of all, I want to thank the school for inviting us and for the warm welcome that we've received. We got here kind of by happenstance, but I'll let Carl explain that to you later. Let me tell you a little bit about our family. Mark and I were married for 11 years and parents of a normal daughter named Jenna when Melanie was born. And at birth, we found Melanie to be perfectly normal. She was actually an easy baby. When children with her issues are growing up and they're the first children, I think a lot of you can attest that things can be very stressful for their parents. Grandparents and friends come to you and they say, I'm having a hard time understanding why your child is having so many meltdowns. How come they won't make eye contact with me? Why are they flapping? How come they have problems with loud noises? Do you know that your daughter covered her ears when I was talking to her? I guess I was too loud. Doesn't she have a volume control? How many of you have heard those kinds of remarks? Anybody? Yeah, okay. Later on, your friends want to know, why is she interrupting our conversation, and how is it that the conversation keeps getting turned to the things that she's interested in? I feel like it's been hijacked. Can't you tell her to stop? So I had to keep reminding myself that Melanie was raised by the same parents as Jenna. If there was an issue, it wasn't a parenting issue. And I genuinely feel sorry for people whose first children have these issues because they get a lot of unwanted advice and criticism heaped on them. And people are very well-meaning, but a lot of times it totally misses the mark. So I came to understand that no one is given the same piece of clay to mold. And a family can work very hard to support their children and still not get the same results. Melanie's issues surfaced by the time she was 2. She was tactile defensive. And what I mean by that is her clothes made her so uncomfortable that she would go behind her and just rip the seams and rip out the tags from her clothes. Of caused holes and a lot of frustration for me. In addition, I'd see Melanie as a 2-year-old sitting on her stairs, turning her socks inside out. I said, this is strange, what is she doing? Well, what she was doing was she was trying to get rid of the seams. Did you know socks have seams? I had no idea that socks had seams until we started dealing with Melanie. She would refuse to go into a store like Bath and Body Works. Too many smells. She didn't like going to the beauty parlor. We had to find her a hairdresser that only worked in a salon with children because they don't use any of those stinky chemicals. So these are the kinds of things that we did to kind of mold her world in a way that she could relate to it. Melanie rarely answered people when they spoke to her. She's a wonderful speaker. She just had no interest in answering people who spoke to her. So for that, we had to have her hearing tested. Her hearing was fine, nothing wrong there. At 18 months, a specialized pediatrician told me the issue was, are you ready for this? Gray-haired older parents, only children, go by the book. I said, but I have a child, and I'm not that old. No, that's what you need. You just need to relax. Because I held her on the exam table, the doctor suggested I was the problem. Who leaves a wiggly 2-year-old sitting alone up high on a table? Not me. So I walked out of here, we left that office, and I never went back. And I'll tell you what the takeaway was for me. I had to follow my instincts. Melanie was enrolled in a 2-year-old nursery school class, and she was in a play group as well. Normal activities like play group only added to the feeling that she was different. There was no joint play, no cooperation. She would only play by herself. Does this sound familiar to anybody? There was no sharing. There was no give and take. The preschool teachers had us on speed dial. She turned her back at circle time. All right, why? Anybody know why she turned her back on circle time? Anybody know? She was trying to black out the auditory and visual stimulation she was getting. It was too much for her. So while the 14 kids were sitting in a circle looking towards the teacher, our Melanie was looking at the wall. She couldn't do puzzles, even as my nephew, who was in her class and 9 months older, would hand her the round peg and say, put it in the round hole. She worked real hard to put it in the square hole. This was Melanie. She had a bad habit of running impulsively in front of cars. That was a scary one, and she had absolutely no fear of anything. The teachers asked us to have her evaluated, and I wasn't alarmed. These teachers I happen to trust. They had taught our older daughter 9 years earlier. Sometimes you'll find a preschool where the teachers have a 2-year degree in preschool education. These gals have master's degrees in psychology. I said, okay, you want her tested? We'll have her tested. She came to our house. They did the testing. Melanie tested normal. Now what are we going to do? Well, we waited a couple months, and the preschool teachers still had all the same concerns they had earlier. So their suggestion was a very wise one. They said, can we test her at school? That's where all the issues are cropping up. And the test showed huge developmental delays. And I was sorry that Melanie had issues, but I was very glad that I was not the parent standing by stomping my foot and saying, she's normal. I have test results to show this girl is normal. And it's very important. The takeaway from me is to be open to input from the professionals who are working with your children, and it doesn't pay to be defensive. Early intervention with autism brings the best outcome. I was heartbroken when it became apparent that we would have to take Melanie out of the small, warm, religious preschool that we had chosen for her and send her to a school for kids with special needs. This is when we started learning about the Committee on Special Education. We instantly became members of a committee I never knew existed. She needed speech therapy, not for articulation. It wasn't how the words came out, but just because she wouldn't answer people. We found out that the speech therapists make sure that they consult with the OT, and then they consult with the PT, and the next thing you know, your child who's in regular education has so many pullouts that you have to pull them out of the school and find the right situation for them. And so that's what we did. We realized as parents that we have to be willing to change course. Our older daughter, Jenna, had attended a private day school. It was a longer school day than the public school, and the children were taught half the day in English and half the day in a foreign language. Clearly, a dual language, fast-paced school was not the right place for Melanie. So we changed course yet again, and our public school had the services that she would need. So it's really important to remember that